EBS Podcast presents.
Today, guys, we're in for a new episode of the EBS's Just Go podcast, the podcast where I interview EBS students and alumni to talk about their experiences on their Erasmus trips. So, before we say anything further, we ought to go ahead and say hello to today's guests. But actually, we should say konnichiwa, because we're going to Japan today with Frank and Yuri. What's up, guys? How you doing?
Konnichiwa.
Hey, man. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. Pretty much how the podcast work is about first a little bit, we're going to talk about the school, and then we're going to talk about the fun stuff. This is a school podcast, so we have to talk about the school. So, you guys were in, I swear to God, I'm really sorry for not being able to pronounce the city properly, but you guys were in what city and what school?
Nagoya. So Nagoya is basically below Tokyo.
Okay.
And we went to the Nagoya Commerce and Business School.
Yeah, Nagoya
University of Commerce and Business.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was actually quite far away, the campus itself, from our living arrangements.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you guys lived together?
Well, we lived in the same student dormitory, but we had our separate apartments in there.
Okay, all right, I get you.
Yeah.
Not a bunk bed situation.
No.
Thankfully.
It was very nice, actually.
Yeah. So but you were, how far away was the commute then?
It was actually with a train and a bus.
I think the train was like 15 minutes and the bus after that was half an hour. So 45 minutes to get to school.
That's a solid commute though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this, I guess.
And also in rush hour traffic, so it wasn't that far.
Man, that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
So you guys, okay, let me get this right. Nagoya, same dormitory, same school. You guys were transiting together and everything, or you guys were like, nah, man, I see you back in EBS kind of situation.
No, we were transiting together, but we had like separate times, separate classes. So it depended on whether we were like to go with each other or separately. Like it all depended on the days.
All right, and then what was your standard day looking like, time wise?
Well, it depended actually. Sometimes I woke up around 6:50. School started at 8, and then was it 8 or 9? Basically 6:50, and it went all the way until 5. Then you get the commute home, so maybe you get home around half past 6. You eat, and then after that it's studying, and so sometimes the day itself went from 6:50 to 8 in the evening or 9 in the evening. That was sort of the very busy day. But usually we just had like one class, so it was from like 12 to 3. And I think it was very comfortable. But the thing is, the classes themselves were super long. They were around, 300 minutes?
Yep.
Yeah, 300 minutes. So it's like...
A day?
Yeah, it was
one class.
One class.
Yeah.
So...
You said 300 minutes as in like... You had 300 minutes of one class in one day.
Yeah, and then there was a break.
And then
you
there
eat
was second.
food, and then there was a second class for another 300 minutes.
So you'd have 2 classes a day then?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's the Japanese way, is just to, you get into the mentality and you're in there for a long time. You're just doing your thing.
That sounds so much fun.
Yeah, because, EBS is like 45 minutes or something a class. So you go from that.
And more.
Yeah.
I mean,
1.5 hour.
I mean, that's even if you show up to class.
Actually, that showing up is mandatory. Otherwise, you will fail class. You can only skip one time, I think.
It was once or twice, but then again, you need a good reason for that. Because the classes are so long. When you miss one class, you miss a big part of the education.
Yeah, I can imagine when you're doing 4 hours. It essentially boils down to being like when we have our guest lecturers come and they're like, 4 days, we're really going to learn an entire semester, and you're in the class for 8 hours a day. So I can imagine how intense it was. Speaking of which, could you guys, I guess because it was so intense then, could you just get up and leave during class? Like if you had to go use the bathroom, was it like strict like that? Or because I've seen guys literally just got to be like, I'm going to go have a smoke break in the middle of a law lecture and just be like, I'll be back in 15.
Yeah, pretty much you could.
Yeah, you could, but it was funny. There's some professors that, they said, okay, you can go. But if you're out of the class for more than 5 minutes, I'll remember it. So You had to go there and you had to sort of be back in a pretty fast time.
Some teachers gave you like this walk of shame look that, oh, you're going to the bathroom, okay, during my class.
Yeah, you weakling.
Maybe it's an important part. Where are you going now?
Yeah.
You know, you never know what they're thinking.
So how big was your... you guys were the only Estonians then there? And how big was your Erasmus?
I think it was around like 40, 50 students, people from very different countries, all the way from America, Middle Europe. We had people from Asia. So it was very good to see the different nations. But the thing is that we were hoping for more contact with like the Japanese students, but because of the cultural environment, Japanese students have to follow a certain path in their school. They can't really deviate from, take like different lessons or something that goes against their degree, because when you get a job, it's like a marriage. You're there for life.
Yeah, it's a salaryman kind of thing.
Yeah. So right now, I think it's more, it's sort of changing with the new generation. So yeah, that's why we were with the Erasmus students, and we didn't really have that much contact with the Japanese students.
Okay. And of course, there's also the language barrier thing that they don't really speak English that well, and they lack the confidence to talk, even if their English is really bad.
Yeah.
But once you get past the barrier, you can actually see that some of them who have studied like 4 years, they have like proficient English, but they just don't have the courage to come speak with foreign students.
Okay. So how big was your school population size then? Because I think EBS is about 4,000 students. We say 4,000 on the website, but I have never seen more than 500 in the building.
Neither. I think same, but could be more.
It's the same, but the campus is totally different. The campus is like there's a big archway of a gate, and it's like very big. And you go in there, you don't even see the school at first. There's some like tennis fields, and there's some rivers, and then there's a pyramid-shaped building that's for the foreigners, Erasmus students. Then there's like different buildings for the actual Japanese students. So it's the whole campus itself is like a small country. It feels like.
And of course, it's divided into two. Actually, one campus is where we went to. It's called Nishin, and the second one was actually inside city center. So
for the master students.
For the master students, yeah. So we didn't
Very
actually talk with them at all. Only in our dormitory.
Okay, just roll back. Did you say a river?
Yeah, there was like a lake and a river flowing by. So sometimes when we went to visit the library, you can actually go through like a small forest path.
It was really scenic.
Yeah.
We have a parking lot.
It was crazy.
I'm imagining what that must have felt like, and I'm just thinking like, I have to pay for parking here.
Yeah, for me actually, it was like the first time we arrived to the Nishin campus. Yeah. It was almost like the same feeling as when you first time travel and you go off to foreign country and you come out of the plane and you're like, wow. And I just looked outside and was like, okay, some schools are like that.
Yeah, that's insane. Okay, so correct me wrong. We've spoken about your dormitory. That was your living accommodation. School, same size as EBS, and then you have the most badass campus I've ever heard of. Like I love it in the States where we're like, oh my god, our campuses are good. Like Tartu could be like, we're pretty much all of Tartu. That's what Tartu is. Just the university. Caltech's like, we have that building that has wood on the side of it, kind of looking thing. You guys are like river.
Actually, our
baseball field was there as well, because they have like the different student organizations that do different sports there. So. And
our room was pretty much pyramid. It looked like a pyramid, glass pyramid.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's also like there have been some heavy designers.
There's pyramids inside the pyramid.
No, it's one pyramid, but it's with a glass ceiling. So you're in there, you just look into the sky.
Oh, okay, I get you.
And it deviates into different classrooms. So the main center inside is like a glass pyramid. And I feel like I have to mention as well that I think it's great that EBS offers like a partner school like this. And also the lecturers themselves were really amazing because they had, every lecturer is required to have a PhD, and many of them come from different countries. We had one lecturer from the United States who worked at a Wall Street bank, and another one who was in Tokyo, Waseda University, a security analyst and so forth. So it's great to just, the things they teach, it's very good, but you can also hear their stories about how they worked in these firms and what happened.
Okay. That being said, how big were your classes then? Like student ways?
Pretty much the whole, or I can say some classes were like 20 people.
Okay.
Some are only 10 maximum maybe.
Oh, so these
30.
were not big hall lectures then?
No, they were big halls, but because because there are only these Erasmus students we thought in our like sector, then basically as much as there were Erasmus students, that was the capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
This did I think in the last podcast I was also bringing up something to the effect of what EBS. Well, EBS doesn't have a river. The one thing that I will say that EBS does better than any other school that I've ever been to, and I've been to 10 schools, so I think I'm fair enough to say, is EBS really allows for students to have a personal connection with their professors. And more importantly, I have like 4 of my professors on WhatsApp, and I can they either go through homework or they help me study. We got some advice, whether it's personal or professional or educational. Did you have the same ability in that? Because that sounds, the education system, I know is very strict. It's very demanding. My understanding of the Japanese culture is that it's a very hierarchy. That one, hierarchy, pyramid, words.
Yeah.
Were you still able to have that kind of connection with your professors and stuff?
I think we definitely were. Maybe some professors more than the others, but we still, like, overall it's very different from the actual Japanese classes.
Okay.
It's still for Erasmus students, and like we asked one of the professors, like, where can we learn more, like, about the Japanese language? Where could you possibly find a job if you wanted to? And they always agreed to help us.
Okay.
We even asked like investment advice for some minute, but like the classes themselves are very, very different from what we've used to in EBS. In here, it's kind of a lecture type, but there was like mandatory. You always had to talk back with. I have to be in discussions, and that made also the connection possible.
Okay, yeah. So, are you guys planning to go back then?
Me definitely.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well,
but separately this time.
Yeah.
okay, all right.
We just want like more of a cultural trip, I think.
Okay, yeah. I haven't been there in years myself. I how far away for you guys from Tokyo?
It was like 200 kilometers, I think. With
it's like half an hour, not half an hour, 1 hour with Shinkansen.
Yeah, the bullet train.
Okay.
So.
And did you guys get to go to other cities around the country? Which ones did you go to?
Definitely. Yeah,
like everywhere.
There's basically the thing with Japan is every city is like its own country, because Tokyo is a very metropolitan place where people go to party, and then you have the big institutions, the banks. Kyoto is a very, very old, sort of one of the oldest cities where it's all about the culture and heritage and so forth.
Yeah, there's a reason that city didn't get bombed.
Yeah, so we basically traveled from Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, which was like the big triangle, also to Hokkaido, which is the island above Japan, like above the mainland. And also do these like smaller villages or places where you get to see more of the countryside and the sort of different life.
Okay.
So
the only place we didn't go was like more of the downside.
Okinawa.
Okinawa we didn't go.
That's
basically where the really, really warm weathers are.
Yeah, that's where I used to live. Yeah, I was there for 3.5 years. It's I'll be honest with you, I was very young when I was there. But Okinawa is not the same as mainland at all. It's a very different culture. But it's great weather. There's a ton of Americans there, though. There's a literal ton of us.
The U.S. bases as well.
Yeah, I lived on a Marine base there. Well, I think what is it? We have 1 naval base, 2 army bases, and then 2 Marine Corps bases. But yeah, no, it's stellar fishing. You go snorkeling every day. It's beautiful. Longest place people ever lived, though, which is really weird. And also, Japan always has a special place in my heart. When I left Japan, my dad was still in the military at the time, and we were taking, I think it was a C-130. They have a system where you can fly in a C-130 for like $8 across the Pacific. So we went from Okinawa, then we flew into Hiroshima, and then my dad when I was 8 was like, you know what? We should go see the Hiroshima World War II Museum. And if you know anything about Japanese people, they tell the whole story vividly. And that was my experience of Hiroshima. So I just wanted to let the audience know I saw burning bodies. It was enjoyable. But we've done my obligations. I've asked you about the school. I've asked you about this. Let's get real, boys. Let's get real.
Okay.
Well, what was the social life like? Because the audience did to hear, but Yuri, my man over here, you got yourself why don't you say it? I don't want to say it, man. You were able to find a Japanese woman?
Well, yeah, like when you're in school, you definitely socialize with other people still, even outside of the classes. So there were like community events and so forth. Okay. So it was great in order to, like, the student organizers, they were very active. Okay. They always tried to like make games or do these. They even rented like a big. What was it? It was the house in the campus itself where we got to like stay overnight. Okay. So yeah, from there it's definitely a great place to meet people. So it was fun. Right.
But otherwise, I think that the language barrier it's quite big. If you really have the shirts. I also found one, but like.
So it's a 2 for 2 kind of game. Yeah. You guys.
Yeah.
High five that one. Okay, sorry about interrupting you there. Just want to.
Outside of school, if we consider like clubbing and all of those things, then if you don't speak the language, it's really, really hard. It's almost impossible.
I've been to Narva. I know what a difficult language is like on a Wednesday night.
This is nowhere near like that. Japan is crazy in that sense because, you know, when you first arrive there, you want to find the way to your apartment or something, you know, everything's, especially in Nagoya, like I said, every city is very different. Tokyo has these English street signs and so forth, but Nagoya is mostly catered to the Japanese working people. It has Mitsubishi, it has the big companies there. It's a very industrial city. Okay. So they're just ordering food or something. You have to get by with at least some sort of Japanese because either they don't understand you or they bring you something else. So
as part of the adventure.
Yeah.
Do you guys speak Japanese then?
We're studying.
We're studying right now. Actually, we continued our studying after the Erasmus. There's this Tallinna Rahvaülikool, which is like the university that offers language programs. So we are on our 2nd course in Japanese right now.
Oh, and what does that translate to in an A, B, C scale? Where are you guys at?
I think it's like an A2, maybe. Yeah, because the thing with Japanese is
they have like a whole different system. They have from
you have
N5
to learn 3
down.
different alphabets. So
okay, I mean I know the complexity language. What do you have? What is it?
I think it's almost like an A2. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
You guys can watch anime without struggling, though, right?
No.
You still need the subtitles?
Subtitles, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, but you can auditorily understand what they're saying, though.
Yeah, it's like some parts of the language, but the thing is, anime uses a lot of anime language. It's kind of different from the everyday conversations.
Okay, then that should have been the question I should have asked you. That's bad on me. You guys were able to understand what people were saying then?
Yeah. So, for example, if you're in a restaurant and the waiter asks you something, you can usually understand what they ask you. So it's like these things. But again, like 60-70% of our studying experience has been hiragana, which is one of the alphabet systems. Then there's kanji, which is for foreign words, and also katakana for foreign words, and then kanji for the kanji very complex symbols.
Chinese characters, basically.
So it takes a long time just to study that.
There are like 3,000 kanji characters that you need to learn before you can consider yourself being able to read newspaper or be proficient enough to speaking.
Yeah, so this is like a lot of flashcards you need to be doing.
Yeah.
Okay. You Estonians are the weirdest people I've ever met in my life. You guys be like, you know what? It's a cool culture, but I just want to suffer for years on end. Just want to read the newspaper.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it has its own rewards, but it's definitely very difficult. But I think we're now starting to like sort of see the fruits of our labor because we understand the character system more, so we can actually start learning the words and conversations. But actually, if
you want to know how hard the language is, they themselves learn for 12 years their own language, and that's why their English is so bad, because they don't have time to study English. They have to learn their own language.
Yeah.
I do not understand languages that are that complex. I think Turkish, when the Turkish Revolution was going on, Ataturk changed the alphabet from Sanskrit over to Latin. It made everything easier. Just make it easier. Like I get the cultural, keep the connection, but like even Estonian, I don't understand why you have like you know what I'm saying too. Yeah, like
I'm from
like
Saaremaa, so I really can say it also.
Yeah, man, represent. We're Mr. Purist over here. I can see all the letters. Okay, so but other than that though, so would you say that your experience mainly in Japan was around this international community? You really hugged really tight to that? Because my international experience of Estonia has been like, nah, bro, I'm out of here. I'm only Estonians. Like, or how would you guys take your experience as in regards to that?
I think it's sort of like it was definitely first off the Erasmus students themselves. We talked with them a lot. Then it was certain Japanese people that were actually willing to make the effort to talk to you in English or in very bad Japanese. And then I think it's sort of, if you want to make like experience the culture and find the right people, it takes years. For example, for us, one of the big things about Japan is car culture. So we managed to actually get into that sort of field as well. We managed to like go to these gatherings to see the cars. Okay. But in there, even you need somebody to guide you, somebody who knows English and Japanese.
Car culture, just Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift car culture?
Almost. We saw Paul Walker's Skyline as well. It was like an exact replica of that. So yeah, that type of stuff.
No, it was pretty rad, but it's nothing like in the film. But it was like street racing.
Oh, you guys see street racing?
Yeah.
Dude, that's incredible.
Yeah. There's like, you can get lessons for drifting as well. So, there's we
drift is like a cultural element of Japan, so it's
you guys did take drift lessons though, right?
We didn't, but we want to, because we met a very famous Japanese drifter who actually offers these services, for example. So again, if you have somebody to guide you, you can see Japan in a whole different level.
Okay, so you're saying then there's a vastly different way to see Japan in both sides of it. Yeah, I understand that.
But you have to make a lot of work. Like you almost kind of have to. The Erasmus program is in that country keeps you like a little bit like in a cocoon. Yeah. So to get out of it, you sometimes have to make your own like blockades to stop it, and then disperse out and find these Japanese people who are gonna get you where you want to get. Yeah.
So was Tinder difficult then in Japan?
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everything's in like nobody's gonna have an English profile there.
You're gonna use Google Translate a lot, and then finally they understand that something's weird with your language, and then they will block you.
So wait, I mean, I'm just asking because it's trying to get more information about language stuff. You got blocked because you were using Google Translate on Tinder?
If you use Google Translate, it doesn't translate to anything similar to what they would use in the language. Okay. So they will see that, that guy doesn't know anything what you're talking about. I even can't understand what he's saying sometimes. So
because when you translate an English sentence in Google Translate to Japanese, the thing is, Japanese language structure is composed in a way that in English you would say "I go to school." In Japanese you would say "school I go do," right?
Yeah, kinda.
Yeah, so it's in a reverse way, And then when you put it into Google Translate, it has a very difficult time to sort of adjust.
Oh, so it's kind of like in German how they're flipped.
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. All
But
right.
even more messy.
Yeah, it's very messy.
Yeah, I'm not going to be like my German is way more difficult than your Japanese, but let's pay respect for where they pay. You know what I mean? Like,
Of course.
yeah, you're killing it in the Japanese, though. I respect that. I would never. That being said, I would love to go to Japan, but I don't think I would ever learn the language. Like, I've lived here for 3.5 years, and I still won't learn your language, just because.
You don't have to.
No, I don't, and that's.
Yeah.
I feel like whenever we do this podcast, right? I always like comparing my experience because I didn't do Erasmus, right? I moved here when I was 18, straight out of high school, and I was like, I don't want to do an Erasmus because I'm already doing Erasmus essentially. I'm just doing it for a very, very long time, and like I'm building a career and all this stuff that comes with long-term living.
Yeah.
But like, even I was like, I'll learn the language, and then I was like, really don't have to. You just, if anything, you just need to know a little bit of Russian because that's more. Honestly, I think Russian is actually more important sometimes than Estonian is.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it depends on what you seek in
Okay.
Japan. So if you seek the tourist experience, and like, then it's totally fine. You can go to these manga stores, for example. You can buy your comics and that type of thing. It's totally okay, especially in Tokyo. If you want an experience that's more like seeing the other side of Japan, you either need the language or you need a guide, or somebody like a friend
All right.
who speaks Japanese.
Okay. And this being said, if I could circle back to you guys wanting to go back, are you guys planning to go back just for like a vacation to like study more? Or are you wanting to make the jump to permanent living there for multiple years?
I would actually like to live there for like 3 to 5 years to get to be the salesman or salary man and get a corporate job and whatever,
Okay.
to be like in the strict environment for at least for that amount of time. After that, I would rather not, but for a short period of time, I would like to try it and also maybe do masters there.
Oh, so you actually want you don't want just the general, like, you want the actual proper Japanese experience.
Yeah, maybe. I think will be a hardcore life lesson.
Yeah, do you like intense things? It seems like you guys are a very intense duo. I have to say this. You're very, and I've never, like, I'm a comedian, and like for me, it's like, oh goddamn, I have to. My struggle is like, oh, I have to go into the city tonight to do a show. Like, I show up, I have a great time. Like, I gotta put my pants on. I gotta do this, and you're like, man, I want to work 9 to 5. I want to do extra work. I want to study a super hard language. You are a very dedicated set of guys. It's very impressive. I actually feel I feel like I'm not doing this enough service, but you guys are very intense. It's very nice to hear that you really want to embrace that different side of Japan that most foreigners, I don't think, would actually be brave enough to do. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah. And do you want to be a salary man as well, then, Yuri? Or
I appreciate the compliment. Thank you.
Yeah.
I basically, with actually going to Japan, the way when you come back, you already have a very, very good school on your resume, like your CV. And Japan is a place that I think offers one of the best educations you can get.
okay,
So if anybody considers going to Japan, that's already one of the major pluses in there. That being said, when I came back from Japan, I also sort of utilized that and immediately got like an internship in a very good company. So I do recommend it. Also, I am kind of like a salaryman right now. When thinking about Japan, it would be an amazing experience if you can go and be a salaryman, but the society is very closed. So you definitely need to learn the language. I spoke to one of the Japanese people and they said that being an employee in 7-Eleven is one of the already a very, very difficult place to even get hired, because you need to have an above intermediate Japanese language. You need to know omotenashi, which is like the way of servicing customers.
Polite language.
Yeah.
okay.
There's Geigo, which is like a separate polite language for Japanese. And so it's very difficult. If you can get it, it would be amazing.
Were you saying it's difficult just for Japanese folks?
It's
for
difficult
everyone.
for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Foreigners even.
Foreigners very difficult, because for every foreigner, there's 10,000 Japanese who also want to get a job. So to actually get hired, you need to apply to multinational corporations like Rakuten, which is has a lot of foreign people working there.
Okay. All right. So if you wanted the Asian experience, it's easier to just get a job in China. Then is what you're getting at.
Kind of, but it's still not gonna be that strict for foreigners. Like what I've heard is the difference between Japanese and the foreign workforce is like day and night. That they still like, okay, you did something wrong. Okay, it's nothing.
Yeah, they're very
Don't worry about
lenient
it.
on the foreign people more.
All right, yeah, because I maybe my understanding of it is this, which is great because it's a very businessy talk for a business school. last podcast we talked about people getting stabbed and stuff. So this is awesome. I find that in Western culture, especially because I really started working here, and part of the startup community is that what's the classic phrase we have? We hire for personality and train for skills. And I'm very much so in agreement to a degree with that. Like you should have some aptitude in what you're applying to do and the skills you're trying to do. You should have some general ability in that. Like if you're going to do marketing, you should have an ability with creativity to find new avenues. If you're an accountant, you should have very good math skills. Is it the same thing in Japan? Is it we'll train you, like we see value in you, or is it very much so you don't have results, we don't care, there's someone else kind of situation?
No, this is like I said before, it's like a marriage. So when the Japanese person goes through their school education, first off, their parents have to make sure that they get into a very good university. After that, they have to do well. And then I think it's March when they're graduating becomes the job hunting time where all of the country, the students are hunting for jobs. And then they usually get an internship for like 10 days to see. And when they get a job, they're set for life because the company tries to sort of imbue themselves in your life by offering to pay for your car, for example, or mortgage and so forth. So you're sort of in debt to them and you stay in that company.
And actually it's you're embedded in it so much that when let's say your wife gets pregnant, then the company starts to pay or double the wage because they don't want your wife to go to work so that she can stay at home with the kids, and you would still be in the company 100%.
Yeah, but things like, you want to stay at home, you want to be a stay-at-home dad, or you want vacations, those things you can kind of forget because it's not going to happen. Okay, so because I think in the States it used to be that culture where you turn 18, you do what you do at 18, and then around like I guess our age now, you kind of settle into one profession, and then if you're you're that trade for the rest of your life. If you're going to a company, you would stay in that company for as long as you could until it failed or you got fired. I guess this is like a very much so. It's like joining a cult. Is the best way I could put it. You're born into it. Okay, is it also very much so a family-based thing where, if you have, I'm not to say nepotism is big there, but like, is that something you have to think about? Like, well, my dad's rich, so I'm kind of covered there. Because I feel Estonia is not so much the family-based, but it's very much so who you know. And if you're connected, you can make stuff happen. Yeah.
Can you remember the nepotism statistics? We actually had like...
Estonia has some nepotism problems, definitely. There's connections and so forth.
But in Japan?
In Japan, I think it's still a big part of it because if your father or your family is rich, you get into the better schools usually.
Okay.
So, and that also sort of plants your career forward.
Yeah, you pay your way to the top.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, I think like when you get a job, the people are celebrated into the company and they usually have to do something weird like sing karaoke or dance in front of the people. So that's their way of...
But you're also... While I understand the experience of having how do I say? I understand the experience you're describing where you're very much so endowed with the company and you're really part of it. Are they considering their employees and is it very much like a family? Like you feel, because the worst thing I would hear is the stereotype of the company doesn't care about you. You're a slave to the machine, but they really care about you though. They really want to see you do well because your success is their success. But like, if they're willing to pay you double to keep your wife at home so she can take care of the kids, like then it's kind of a good deal though. Is it though? Or like, how do you guys see it as Westerners from looking inside?
Well, I think the right keyword is family. kind of. They're maybe even the corporate families in that country is gonna be bigger than your real family. Like it's so embedded.
Yeah.
All right.
It depends on the size of the company. But overall, yes. And also, the further you stay, the longer you stay, the more you get these bonuses. And the bonuses actually make up a huge part of your overall salaries that you get.
Okay. So you actually may at a certain point just be living off bonuses instead of
Yeah, they're substantial.
Okay. And what's the average like if you guys move to Japan, what would you be expecting to make?
In euros, I do believe the average salary in Japan is about like 2,600 or.
But in Nagoya, it was like 5,000.
Yeah, it's
starting.
It's the average usually.
Just average.
Yeah, that's when you
without
start.
any extra bonuses or anything.
Because,
just salary, average salary.
Is this due to the fact of how expensive it is to live there? Is this?
It's very expensive. The apartments in Tokyo, for example, you pay big money to get a very small apartment.
Okay.
So that's definitely, and also Japan has one of the lowest unemployment rates, but it's due to the fact that they give jobs for everything. You can have your whole job being that you hold a sign.
Yeah.
So that's why it drives the average salary down a bit, but the people who are actually at the top, they're making very big money.
It's built like a socialist country in that way.
Oh, it's cool. No, I only bring up that because I also maybe I'm wrong. Please do correct me if this is actually interesting. I'd love to hear your input on my theory. My watch is hurting my finger. I don't believe that an average salary is a good indication of quality of life, nor is it a good indication of how well off you are. Because, I think that living in Estonia, we have in Europe standards and former Soviet Union standards, and even comparative to the United States, we have a very good standard of living here. But we don't make that much money in comparative to Sweden, who may make 3,000 a month, and we make, on average, like what, 1,200, 1,400. But also our living expenses are so much lower that I think the most expensive room I've ever heard was somebody lived right next to Stockman. They paid like $600 a month for a small room, but you live out where I live, and $600 a month will get you a small house. So it's all kind of what you value. But is it same there? What do you think of that thought? Like, I know it's important to ask. Some people will be interested, but I don't think that looking at like, well, in New York City, you could be making $6,000 a month, but you gotta think, well, okay, you're making $6,000 a month, but what are you paying to live in that city? What are you able to put in savings? What are you able to reinvest? What are you able to spend on yourself? Because here you could make $1,200 and your entire expenses could be $400, and then you could just have $800 to blow through at anything you wanted to do. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think that I definitely agree with you on the point that, for example, Estonia is a very good place to live, even though our salaries are not very high. In Japan, also, the society is, everything's clean. The crime is so low. You can be in a Starbucks, you can leave your laptop on the table, and you can go to the bathroom, and nothing will get stolen. So I think the society is built in a very good way. The cost of living is high, especially for a foreigner, I think. But if you get married into a company, and if you're a good salaryman, I think it's a very, very good place. One of the best places to live on earth.
Okay.
Yeah, I also agree with that sentiment. Like, I would say that looking at average salary can be one of the biggest mistakes you can do when you choose what country to go to or what life path to take. You just have to look how much of that money actually gets to your pocket, and maybe just take it as a percentage base.
Yeah.
Okay. With how intense it's for Japan though, is it a standard 9 to 5 workday and that's it, or are talking way more hours?
I think you can add a few hours on top of that.
Okay.
It depends on the company, but some salarymen, they can't really, or they shouldn't leave before the boss does, and sometimes the boss works until 12 or 1.
Okay.
So it depends on the job and the company, but many people work overtime, and that's led to the high suicide rates as well.
Also, even after that, they have this sometimes mandatory drinking parties that you have to go with your colleagues after you have had 18-hour work shift, and you don't go home yet.
Yeah, you can't go to your family. Your boss asks you out, you have to go.
But that's all for like still. Right now we're speaking only about Japanese culture because for foreigners it's not that harsh. We are more.
You're more like you. They're more like you couldn't drink with us. You can't handle. You'd be like, I'm Estonian, man. Have you heard of Vita vodka? Have you heard of Estonian vodka? We make that. I'll show you. But do you think that as a foreigner going into it, I know that they're more accepting of it, but is it, if your goal in a couple of years is to do your master's and then really try the salaryman's life, do you think it's sustainable for you? Is it sustainable for anyone? Do they have the ability to be interested in hobbies and whatnot? Do they have the time to have creative outlets and stuff? Because you're the depiction in my head is this is a very intensive, not saying it's not rewarding, it's a very intensive lifestyle. Like with stand-up, you know, I find that it's one of the most rewarding things to be your truest self, or an image of yourself in front of 200 people and just giving yourself to the moment and getting immediate feedback. It's some of the most rewarding thing. It is draining on the amount of hours I've driven just to do 5 minutes on stage. And so, you know, I see that as a valuable cost of my time to the reward that I get out of it. And that's not including the hours I spend writing and I review and stuff and studying and all this stuff. Do you see that you know, working 12 hours a day is really this intense level of work is something that is super valuable, where you're willing to give up some sort of creative outlet you have or a passion you have, or do you even have to do that? Am I wrong here?
Well, the main thing is that most foreigners who go to work in Japan go there as English teachers. This is the thing, the sort of job that's very high in demand, because as a foreigner, you can end up teaching English to either schools or corporations, high-end management or students, it doesn't matter. But
do you need to speak Japanese to be able to do this?
No.
And could like
they would actually like if you didn't speak anything. Because
could in theory, I don't mean to cut you off. In theory, could we just all apply and be English teachers, or is there is there requirements?
No, there's programs for you, and they sort of take you, they place you in somewhere in Japan.
Okay.
So you don't really know where, but you go there and you start teaching. But the thing is, usually you can't really progress with that job.
Okay.
This is 3 years, and then after that your contract ends, you start from the beginning again. So for foreigners who are thinking of going to teach English, short term, good, long term, not good.
Okay.
But if you go there as a salaryman, or you can get into a good company like Rakuten, I think it's very rewarding. Yeah.
Okay.
But what you were saying about maybe losing some of the interests, I think this is going to be probably the case.
Okay.
At the job, definitely.
You really have to be a different kind of breed for that kind of job. Like for me, I don't think I would last more than 5 years. That's why I have like this short-term goal.
Yeah, no. From my understanding, just the brief conversation, my envisionment of what you want is you want to have this full-fledged experience, just diving deep into it, and then be like, I did it. I'm going home, man.
Yeah, next check mark.
Yeah, I'm going back to the summer cottage for like 3 days. I just need a break and go sauna and stuff. But yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense to hear this.
Because we were talking about vacations before, and actually there was this one Estonian guy who was there. He was interviewed, and he said that this year I had like 2 days of vacation only. Like it's normal not to take out your vacation, because it shows that you're more responsible.
Yeah,
you get a weekend though, right?
Maybe.
It depends, but usually when you start taking out vacations, especially at critical times, or you start being more of a stay-at-home dad, that's when you stop getting promotions.
Okay.
That's usually how it goes.
And the promotions can be like 6 figures, so you really don't want to be at home.
It's high risk, high reward.
What about, because the company, you know, it sounds great, all the benefits, you really married into it. So it's kind of like, it's an interesting situation to be in, especially as a foreigner or as just a Japanese worker. What's the situation like in regards to your wife just had birth? I'm assuming paternity leave is not a thing there. Or are you allowed to, like, you know, hey boss, I'm gonna take 45 minutes off to see my kid's birth, and I'll be back to doing more work.
I think you can do your 45 minutes, but like a big paternity leave is not so common.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's like, when you dedicate yourself to a company, you stay there, you work there, you work long hours, and you don't quit. Because when you quit, that's like a taboo in Japan.
Okay.
Once you've quit your company, you're seen as sort of a lesser employee, and you will never reach the same amount of bonuses you get again in a different company.
Unless you are recruited by the other company.
Yeah.
Oh, so unless you're headhunted, then
Yeah.
okay. But if you left or got fired or some stuff, you're
Yeah.
So
Then
paternity
you're out.
leaves, like in Estonia, these things don't really happen there.
because I actually just learned that the way the system here is. The maternity leave in Estonia is incredible. You get 18 months, and then if you have a kid within like the first, like was it 9 or 10 months, then you can get an extra like 18 months. You could take 3 years off and just be like, it's cool. I'm getting paid. But I assume, how do I say, like if you had say your son was born on a Monday morning and you showed up for work on Thursday afternoon, that's cool?
I think this is cool.
Okay, that's fine. All right, I'm just
In
trying
our
to,
school, we had you could take up to 2 days if a relative died of a break.
yeah, 2 days.
You can skip 2 days. If somebody close family, if it's like already like grandma, then no.
Your grandma died?
Yeah, come here.
That's cool. Just write her a note. She'll read it later. It's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, no, I only asked that question about the maternity and paternity leave just so I can really gauge how intense the culture is, because I mean, yeah, I was a kid, like I was like 8 when I left Japan, so like in Okinawa is vastly different. It's very different. Like I think the story my dad told me is he was out drinking, he went out for a celebration of the Marines, and they were going to this one bar that was run by the Yakuza, and they're like, no, this isn't for you. They walked the like 12 Marines to a different bar to be like, oh no, this is the place that foreigners are allowed and you're cool to be here. This is kind of a Japanese establishment. So I know how the Okinawans are that way. So mainland, what's the time frame and everything, how severe and stuff, because it's like seems super fast moving, while the same token it feels like it could stand still at the same time. You're very easy to get trapped in one location for your life, but it seems like it's moving at a pace that's relative to ours is light speed. So yeah.
Yeah, they're very courteous to you. So even if you go to the wrong place, usually you'll be fine.
Okay.
In that sense. And I think overall still that even though it's a very hectic place, it's a very high pressure place. This is our view from being there for 1 year. But I think it says something that we were there initially for 6 months, and we actually asked EBS and the school in Japan if we can extend our stay. And they were very nice to let us do that, because I knew it sort of posed some headache to them. But that just shows how much we sort of fell in love with Japan.
Yeah.
And I think that students in the future will most likely feel the same.
Oh, that's great.
I would say that if you're the kind of person who gets like offended a lot, then Japan is not the place, because you will see like notes, no foreigners allowed, or like kind of
there can be some racism towards you, but it's a very sort of
if you get that out, then it's really nice. The
they
nature is
expect
nice.
you to understand it because it's their culture. Too bad.
No, I think I coming from as a foreigner here, I understand that's actually my biggest thing with like Martin Helma and stuff in Estonia. If we cut out the Japan for a second, go back to Estonia. I don't get why he gets as much hate as he does. I don't understand your political system at all. I think it's very confusing. Your local elections are far more important to you guys than they are in my country. But I think Martin Helma's approach of how do I say, just being like, the country's so small, we really need to value our culture, our language. And while phrases like blacks go back is highly racist and inappropriate and should never be said, the root of the idea is still, in a way, is still sincere. Am I crazy to think this? Like it's his form of protecting his beliefs and his identity. And, if you see another nation saying, sorry, bud, you chose to come here. The same thing is like if you chose to move to Estonia and be like, why is it cold? I can't curse on this. Why is it cold? Why do I have to buy a Helly Hansen to stay warm? It's so expensive, coats. Why are they so expensive? Like if you came here, you're like, bud, you chose to move here. You knew the depression was going to happen in February. So I guess the same thing I'm just saying in Japan, the same thing is if you get offended, like, but you chose to come here. You have to appreciate what you did. This isn't a one-way street. It's two ways.
Well, and that's why I feel that nobody gets offended there, because like you exactly what you said. you go there, you already know it. And I actually respect them also for that because, well, you're kind of in the place, but you know exactly where you have to be.
In terms of Martin Helme, I think Estonia is just looking out for its foreign relations.
Yeah.
But overall, the things that happen in Japan could never happen in Europe. There were many cases. For example, one very high prestige university had different requirements for female students as it had for males. And then it came out in the news. It was a big sort of scandal, but it just quietly went away. They had this... There's inequality, and there was one company that just forced women to not wear glasses because it made them look not so appeasing to the customers. Okay. So there's these things in Japan that happen that couldn't happen in Europe, but I think they're slowly progressing towards making
I would
it
say
better,
that the same things are happening in Europe also. We just don't talk about it, and it's other way around. Like it's vice versa of the what's it called. I can't remember what's name it. Let's not talk about politics.
Well, anyways, yeah.
No, I think I get what you're saying. There's a move for equality in the nation between the genders, and I think in certain situations there's a warranted reason to have these discussions on any format. Whether it's three straight white dudes, and I assume we're all straight. I'm just going to assume. That's not to me assume your gender, sexual orientation, or identity, okay? I'm not assuming it.
Oh, no, we're there.
But that's my thing. Is like for us to be like, oh, we're if we take the ultra-leftist approach, well, we're liberal and we're progressive and this is what we're doing. It's just, we can make the claims. We never know the experiences of others unless they have the opportunity as well. And so if anyone wants to talk about their experiences in Japan as a female and your experiences, I'd love to have you on next episode. Please contact me, Caleb Brunick, on my Instagram, Caleb Brunick, or message the marketing department. We'll figure this out. But what I'm getting at here is, I think while it may feel tough and uncomfortable to have these conversations, we need to have them because we never know if a female from EBS is going to go there, and we don't need to give them the wrong impression. The same token is, they have to understand what they're walking into. They have to appreciate and respect it because, quite frankly, I remember going with some Erasmus guys to Narva for a startup project, and there were dudes who were acting highly inappropriate, and not even just like, oh, this isn't the place. It's like, dude, we're not in Teleskivi anymore. Like, this is a Russian club at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday night. These are real Russians. You don't act this way. You need to be quiet, buy him a drink, throw him a pack of cigarettes, be fine. So I'm ranting here, so I'll just stop. But you get what I'm getting at, I think. There's a time and place for everything. And I think it's important to just talk about, if there is a disadvantage with women where you need to not wear glasses because you're less attractive,
well, not for Erasmus students. So if you're an Erasmus female student, it's totally fine.
No, I think that
it's just for the local.
They will have a blast
people
in Japan if you're because clubs are free for females.
Yeah, actually, there's a lot of benefits.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, actually, females usually do not have to pay for club entrances. They get more free drinks, and there's many benefits to sort of their gender in Japan. I think the issues that we were talking about were more for local people who were just trying to have their life and get a job.
Yeah, no, I get where you're going. I'm offended myself now. Yeah. You get free drinks and you get free club entry because of your gender? I'm sorry. What? Where's the equality in this world?
In Japan, there's positives and negatives everywhere. So,
and I think that's something we have to come to grips with, is that there is no one is across the board equal, but we all have our positive and negatives. This has honestly been my favorite podcast of the entire season.
Great to hear, man.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. And honestly, I'm going to talk to Lisa and see if we can get you guys back in for a part 2. I really want to dive even further into the culture, and I really want to I want to know more about it, and I want to really analyze all parts of the society, because I think that's something more interesting than just the school. Well, it's whatever. But that note, do you guys have any final takeaways from the conversation or from your experiences you would want to highlight and share with the audience?
Want to go first?
No.
All right. So anyways, if you're thinking about going somewhere in Erasmus, Asia, especially Japan, for at least from our experience, is a very great place to go. It's good for you from the education perspective, from the cultural perspective. You can travel around. Watch out for budgeting. You can go through your budget very fast. If there's any sort of questions that you have, and you will definitely have, then feel free to look up our contacts. We've already wrote to at least one student who asked about Japan. So yeah.
Oh, but on that note, if you guys could just give out the easiest way to contact you if you have any questions, that way the audience can ask.
I think you can just write to the student department for our emails.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
But I have also one tip. Kind of try bringing your own food a bit, because after a while, although Japan's food is considered as one of the best in the world, for an Estonian person, it will get bland quite quickly, and you want your own potatoes and
yeah, your own oatmeal.
yeah. I
there's-
had like
there's a big
12 packs of
shortage.
oatmeal with me.
Yeah, I loaned from him. Yeah.
I mean, we have so much smoked fish here. I'm just trying to see how you get tired of that. I get the potato part though. Yeah, you eat enough rice, you're like, nah, I want kartolja.
Well, it's just so spicy. Everything is so spicy. So your palate will like literally overload there. And
Okay.
after like 3 months, you just want normal food.
And when you go to the store, you don't even know what to buy. I mean, we were searching for hand soap for over 40 minutes.
I searched for flour for 6 months.
Yeah.
In one store.
Like
flour
condiments.
as in white flour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't find any. Finally found it was like hidden away in one compartment, and
Yeah, there's a lot of like squids and other things, and but yeah, finding the things you actually want to eat, it's very difficult.
Well, I mean, it's a difficult country, but it's very rewarding. So I think that's where we'll wrap it up. But all right, guys, it's been a beautiful conversation. I'm definitely going to talk to Lisa to see if we can get a part 2 going on, have you guys back in studio, hopefully very soon. So again, thank you guys so much for, hanging out for like last 45 minutes to an hour, and we'll have you back in. I'm being very repetitive for no apparent reason. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to close this out. But anyways, guys, that's been the Just Go podcast, going to Japan. We're going to have him in for part 2. I'm going to try to do that, as I just said, 4 times. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to have him back in, hopefully soon, in studio, live for you guys to view. You all have a wonderful night. Stay safe in these COVID times, and see you guys next week with our next episode, with whatever country that may be.